It's not like church, so you can come to the front row. There's some seats in the front row. Come and fill it up. If you don't find a seat in the back, there's 5 chairs up here in the front row if you like.
Trying to share because we only have
That's fine. I looked through the backup.
applicants for Dos Barrow Rooms. Can I see that?
You forgot their what?
The applicant from Dos Barrow Room came in today to provide this to the board.
Oh, yeah.
So do you want to look through this?
Sure.
He only gave a certain number of copies. Have you seen the room that's full before for anything? Is that true?
Have I seen the what? I'm sorry.
Seen the room that's full of issues before?
No.
Sort of in all your years?
We've had a couple, but not a lot. Here and there, mostly because of not paid taxes. Here's them.
Attorney passed on. So Melanie's out there passing out the yellow forms to every person that.
That's good. They're all gonna talk? I doubt it. Mark?
Good evening. If anyone in the audience is planning on speaking tonight, you do need to complete the yellow half form. Thank you, Melanie. The forms are in the back of the room, the yellow half sheet. If you plan on making any comments at all at tonight's meeting, you need to complete the yellow form. It needs to have at minimal your name and address. The forms can be found where the agendas are in the back of the room. When you come up to speak, you will come to the podium. If you look at the microphone, you see the red light around it. When that red light is turned off is when you are able to be heard through it. In the back over there to the wall. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, everybody's. All right. Yeah, we got, okay, we can go. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, July 1st at 7 PM in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, strong. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is President's Report. There's a few things to report tonight. When I got into work this morning and wrote the date for the first time, I said, oh my God, it's July already. And where's the year going? I can remember as a kid, and maybe you do too, the demarcations of when summer vacation started, when it was half over and when it was almost over. July 4th was kind of the halfway point for myself. Now, I knew we were in trouble when State Fair started coming around and you only had a couple of weeks left before you had to go back to school. But 4th of July is up on us really quickly, so hopefully everybody's enjoying their summer and getting out to do everything that you want and need to do. But just want to make a couple announcements of happenings that are happening within the village. It will start with July 3rd. And on July 3rd, there's a concert in the park, and it starts at 7 PM, and that's at Fireman's Park at the Gales Outdoor Pavilion, and it's featuring the Jazz Crusaders. On the 4th of July, perhaps all of you received a free paper that was in your mailbox, but we have our regular 4th of July festivities, a little bit different this year. The parade is going to start a little bit later. It starts at 4 o'clock. Same pattern and same path that it always has taken, and it'll end up at Fireman's Park. And then starting at Fireman's Park, there's activities put on by our Park and Rec department. There's going to be food trucks there. There's going to be a band from 6 to 9 PM. The name of the band is the Cheap Shots. There's going to be kids entertainment and beer garden and plenty of places to sit and relax and enjoy the day. Fireworks will start at about 9:15 on that day. So please come and enjoy if you can. I did check the volunteer list a couple days back, and I saw that all the slots that were advertised for volunteers were full. So thank you, everybody, for volunteering your time and putting together some time that you can contribute to this great event. It's very much appreciated. Then we go to July 10th. And then there's a concert in the park at 7 PM. And on that day, again at Gales at Fireman's Park, is the community band. July 11th is music at the pavilion from 6 to 10 PM. And that's the Matty Joe Band. July 13th, perhaps some of you received this mailer in the mail. The Germantown Historical Society is putting on a celebration of 50 years as a community organization. And it's going to be on Saturday, July 13th, and this one's in a little bit different place. It's at Dinesville Park, and it starts on Saturday at noon and runs till 6 PM. And there'll be food and beverages, mostly sponsored by the Old Germantown Brewery and Sausage Shop, and there'll be plenty of events. There'll also be live music as well, and I bet you 10 to 1 it's going to be polka music. That's on July 13th. July 17th, we've got concert in the park that starts at 7 PM at Fireman's Park, and OTR the band is the band listed. July 18th, there's music at the pavilion, and the band is Two Hype Crew, and that starts at 6 o'clock and runs till 10 o'clock, always as well at Fireman's Park. July 24th, there's a concert in the park starting at 7 PM. Again, the community band. And then we wrap up July, and if there's not enough to do already in July, on July 25th. And again, There'll be two events going on. The Park and Rec Department will be putting on a family fun carnival from 5 to 9 p.m. Lots of family and kids activities. And the Taste of Germantown from Kiwanis will be going on that same day. So it'll be a great event. Hopefully a lot of people will turn out, and the weather will be amiable for what that event is. But July, lots of events, lots of things to do in Germantown. So please pick and choose what you can or come to them all. All are welcome, of course. That takes care of President's report, so we can go to the next item, which is announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports, starting with department chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room this upcoming Tuesday at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. And at that, just for announcements of some people that may be of interest to that, there is going to be a proposal of the comprehensive tree plan, a draft of that
It is true.
at that meeting. So
Mhm.
anybody that's interested in the tree planting or what the plan is for trees within our community, that will be rolled out at that meeting. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on Monday, July 15th at 5:30 p.m. in this room.
All right, thank you. Trustee Phil Hudson.
Public Safety meets in this room, August 5th, 6 PM.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports they'd like to bring forward? Yes, Trustee Cutts.
Ribbon cutting was held for the completion of the library's patio project on Friday, June 28th. This $35,000 project was 100% funded by local businesses, organizations, and residents. The library would like to thank all of the individuals that donated funds and were involved in making this project a success. The outdoor patio is now available for use.
All right, thank you. See another event in July you got to put down on your calendar. Lots of choices. Thank you, Trustee Cutts. Anyone else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
Just to build on what Trustee Cutts said, the library is conducting a survey that is online, or you can pick it up right at the library. You can find the library survey on the Germantown website, or you can go directly to the library website and take a look at it. And it's just asking you how often you participate and do you like the library. So we'd appreciate your participation if you just could go online or stop in the library and you can write it out as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events, public interest, committee or department reports? All right, seeing there are no others, we then can go to citizen input. If there's anyone within our audience that would like to come up for citizen input, like what was announced earlier, if you fill out a yellow slip and turn it to the village clerk here before you speak at the podium in the center of the room, that would be greatly appreciated. You can also participate in citizen input on WebEx, and please make your wishes known so that the monitor on our WebEx can bring you forward and allow you to have citizen input at that time. So anyone within our audience that'd like to come forward at this time for citizen input, you're welcome to do so.
I'll take that from you first.
And if you could just announce your name and your address for the people that are watching at home, that would be greatly appreciated.
Could you press the button? The red light needs to go off. You're gonna have to press hard. There you go. Thank you. Perfect.
Right?
Beautiful.
Okay. I thought I might as well, as long as I'm in the front row, I might as well be the first one to speak. And besides that, I'm pretty comfortable speaking. But I'm not a Germantown resident, first of all, although I come here all the time. I'm so sorry. My name is Betty Von Gunten, Hartford, Wisconsin. And I'm not a resident of Germantown, but I have come here very often for a variety of different reasons, just because Germantown is a very charming place to be. And one of the places that I do frequent very often is Das Barrel Room. And I just want to put in a word of support saying that this is a place that is, if you want to look for a place that's sort of like your local Cheers, that's what you're going to find there, is a feeling of personableness, a wonderful staff, great owners, and they have a lovely patio and wonderful music. And I realize that this is something that's can be touchy for some people, but on the other side of the coin, you kind of work to make it work for everybody, because music is the stuff that the world is made of in so many ways. And as you mentioned, sir, in the beginning, about all the different things that include music, it does something for the soul. I'm not only a music lover, but a musician myself, and I just want to support this wonderful organization and club. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward.
My name is Joe Schneider, and I am actually a resident of Richfield, which is only 5 minutes from DBR. My husband and I are both involved with other various organizations in the community, the Lions Club, the American Legion. We do a lot of work at our church as well. And we just have to say that since the day and hour that they took over DBR, they have been so generous in supporting our causes, particularly the Lions Club. If you have any familiarity with that, it is a very special club that donates thousands and thousands of dollars and hours to the community. And if you don't know about that, you need to check it out. And also the American Legion, especially at this time where we need our Americanism to stand up right now, the American Legion is doing a lot, and they have helped support our causes there too. We don't have a lot of people like that right now, and we know times are tough, but they've gone out of their way to make sure they can help us whenever they can. And we want to thank them and tell you it's a great place for a great dinner and a drink and great music to dance by. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time? Thank you.
Hey, thanks. My name is Tony Jackson. I'm from Menominee Falls. Just want to let you guys all know I've been going to DBR since about January of 2022. I've met some absolutely wonderful people, veterans, and not to mention the Brooks family, who are extremely conscientious, hardworking people. You know, I've become friends with them and many, many people there. So it's just absolutely wonderful. And what I see there in that short amount of time, company's growing. They're hiring new people, which is, you know, contributing to the tax base, the businesses. And, you know, I see a lot of similarities within the communities. Sir, you mentioned today some of the music venues that are going on. One thing that I've always seen at DBR, and I've talked to Mr. Brooks about, is how do you manage that when everybody's having a blast and it's, you know, it's a good time and you got to cut it off at a certain amount of time. And he actually said they do their absolute best to make sure they're within that window of making sure that the noise ordinances are being adhered to, which is extremely important. So the same thing for those public venues where I live in Menominee Falls, you know, where Village Park is, they certainly have those concerts. And when I started living there, it wasn't there, and it's there. And I see it ends at about 9:30, which is really kind of nice. And theirs is on Thursday night. So I would just say, you know, there's a lot that the company, the Das Barrel Room people and the friendships that are there. This lady mentioned about what the fundraising, the money that they bring in for just charities and stuff during the course of their business. It's very rewarding. I see people very happy there. And then, you know, I would also just state, since the community concert going areas and that are permitted, private enterprise, as long as they're following the noise ordinance restrictions in that, they should also continue to be permitted at Das Barrel Room. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Anyone else for citizen input? Sure. Yep, sure. That's fine. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chuck Benedon. I'm a Germantown resident for about 33 years. And I go to Das Barrel Room on a regular basis because my band is the one that's there on Thursday night. Anybody wants to yell at me, I'm the guy now. And I see this more as a pecuniary issue, I guess. And no matter how much money you owe the IRS, they won't even take away your ability to make a living. That's what this does. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else who wishes to come forward for citizen input at this time? Sir?
Good evening, Jim Grieger. I'm a 23-year resident of Hubertus. I downsized 3 years ago, and I currently live in Saxony Village in Germantown. In my opinion, Das Barrel Room, in the 25 years of frequenting that location from doctors, public house, and to currently is the best version of that location in those 25 years. Keeping it to the outdoor activities, part of their success, I believe, is their outdoor music venue, the Bags League, and sitting on the deck watching a Wisconsin sporting event. And that's all limited by our lousy weather in Wisconsin, and if it rains, so that's limited. So I'm in support of their keeping their outside premise permit. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road in Germantown. Sorry to get all these positive vibes now from Das Barrel Room. Maybe a decibel limit in the noise provision would be helpful to maybe resolve this. But anyhow, I'd like to see on the next village board agenda the return of the CUP for a local resident. I believe most of you have probably seen my editorial about it. And I think the village was not in right standing with how they treated that resident. And so I'd like to see that permit fee returned. In terms of open records request, I have placed several, 3 of which were placed at the end of April, and those have not been responded to as of yet. I would hate to think that maybe they're being delayed because one of the items is a continued subject of your closed sessions, including tonight's agenda. And you've met on it at least 6 other times since 2023. So I ask that I get an anticipated delivery date of those documents so I don't have to pursue this further. The other item is the TID, and I think that is kind of humorous too, the summary in the packet saying Village Board discussed in a previous meeting. Why don't you tell the public it was discussed in a closed session? Yes, that's a meeting, but I think people would like to know how often you're going into closed session about things. And then in the background, it said that they would be acquiring a parcel. Is it the parcel that the village owns directly across the street by chance? Will that be indicated in the presentation tonight about the TID? There was several things with that summary background. The fact that they really didn't provide a map or anything indicating where those expansions will take place. And I know we've got a number of people here from the school board. If you have any questions about how that impacts the school board, I think you should maybe welcome them up at the time that that's being discussed. Thanks.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Okay. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. First, I'd just like to add on to the point about the survey for the library. It's to help gain a grant that may be provide some money towards the addition of the second floor. So there's a purpose behind it. It's not just a survey that's out there. So if you do have time and you are from Germantown, please take a look at that. The second comment that I'd like to make is about the TID. Mostly it's just questions. I don't really understand, and maybe there'll be more information about this later in the meeting, about why we are funding or paying back an EDWC loan with interest. This is an international company, the Sterling Farmer. It doesn't really need help in terms of money. And so I ask, what is the motivation for putting this property in a TID? What kind of jobs are going to be added? It doesn't say anything about that. It says 103. Currently, there's 222 or something like that. And then reading about what they do, the word hazardous and chemical comes up like 60 million times on their website. And they use something called dioxamethane, which seems to be a problem and dangerous. Is our fire department capable of dealing with that? And they want to expand it quite a bit. The third topic that I have is to do with the Das Barrel. I don't have a side in this, except to say that I learned some history today about this. And apparently in 2017, there was an ordinance that had decibel levels and equipment, and it was said at the time that, well, they're not really accurate, and so we don't want to do it. So they changed the ordinance for it to be less specific. And I think that was probably the wrong approach. I've done some research, and there's a number of cities that are going towards adding decibels and using decimal meters. Apparently a good one in El Paso is only $6,200. This to me seems like it's a mistake that was previously made by a village board. And we recently have an example of where you made good on fixing a mistake that was made in prior times. So I'm suggesting that this is another one of those. You need to get back to rewriting the ordinance in such a way that it's fair to everyone. It's fair to the residents, it's fair to the business owners, that we can just go along and have some clarity as to how people are supposed to be around music and the exterior premise. Right now, the way things are, it's inequitable. You've got bars that have to follow certain rules. You've got bars that don't. You've got all sorts of, it's kind of a mishmash. And so I think the ordinance needs to go back. There needs to be a decibel meter in the hands of the police with some training. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Scott Heffley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. It's budget time and I'm the budget guy, self-appointed. So I have some questions for the board. Of course, you're not going to respond to me tonight and that's fine, but things I'd like to know. For one thing, it's July 1st, as President Walters mentioned. How's our audit coming along? We have a lot of big spending plans and borrowing plans coming up and we don't have an audit. And I know there's some people, some trustees, Trustee Pieper, Trustee Miller, you have a background in accounting. This would not, we're taking 6 months to get an audit done. That would not work in the private sector. It wouldn't work at my wife's company and probably yours. You have to get it done quicker because we have a lot of very expensive projects coming up, but we need to know where the heck we're at to make sure we're doing the right thing at the right time. So I would like to know what's going on. We should get that quickly. 6 months is way too long. I keep stating that, but bring it up again. Second point is I want to thank Trustee Pieper for your excellent idea at the last meeting. You suggested that Mrs. Larson and I get some things that we keep bringing up to village board on the agenda to talk about perhaps as a agenda item on the village board. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't know quite how to do that. I'm just a resident, but perhaps I can work with you to make that happen because why not get it talked about, bring it out in the open so we're not guessing, conjecturing or any of that. Great idea. Thank you for that. Gave you a handout, and this is a person that all of you know up there should, Jim Healy from Richfield. He's the village administrator, okay? He wrote an article 9 years ago in the municipality, a magazine all these trustees read and get, that states how to do a simple budget everybody can understand, right? Jim Healy wrote that 9 years ago. He's still in Richfield. If Richfield can come up with a simple budget, so can we, because what I see is 80 pages of check runs, but no financial summary report, which is really what you need for trustees and the public to understand. If we have a question, let's talk to Jim Healy. He seems to know what he's doing over there. He wrote an article and was in the municipality magazine in front of you. There's some good points in there. You should look them through going into budget time. I'd also like to hear an update budget time. Mr. Retzloff said he was negotiating with Safe Built so we get a bigger cut of the revenues we collect as they're our outsourced person for permitting and that in the village. I have not heard an update of where we're at. We were supposed to get a bigger cut. Did they agree to it? Not. And if not, will this board get on them to say, we deserve a bigger cut because we give you a free place, an office here and everything? That's all well and good, but if we deserve a bigger cut, that's money for the budget, which we know we don't have enough money in the budget. So anywhere we can find money would be great. So, and the last thing is, and my trustees are here. Terry, welcome back. I know you're out a couple of weeks, but unfortunately, I've yet to hear from my direct trustees that represent me when I asked them to call me. And this is the 4th time I've asked at 4 village board meetings, asked either Mr. Baum or Terry to call me. And I don't know why that's hard. You have my number, and if not, you can get it from anyone you know. I want to be called, and I'm not going to chase you. I'm sorry. I want you to call. Hold on. It's my turn to speak. I want you to call me, and I'm asking why nobody will call me. This is the 4th time I've asked. Thank you.
Send me an email, so I have it in writing, because you.
There's no writing. I'm in a public meeting on camera.
You send me an email, so I can.
I don't need to send you an email. You need to call me.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Young. I'm not a Germantown resident, but I go back to Das Barrel when I was a kid. It was called Jim and Betty's, and it was a supper club in the 1960s. So just pretty much means I'm old. But anyhow, might be a little bit apples to oranges, but there's the one gentleman that lives nearby that's against the noise. Just saying my input on that. I live in Menominee Falls, right in front of the hospital. Okay, and there's a fire department quarter of a mile away from me. It's where I live. I kind of understand that there's going to be sirens, there's going to be ambulances, there's going to be fire trucks. I live there. I know this is going to happen. So I accept the fact that, I guess in Mark's case, there's music from 7 to 10, and it's that little window. I got 24 hours possibly with the hospital emergencies. Just saying I live there. I want to live there. I got to understand there's going to be some noises at some certain times, and I just accept that fact. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? You? Thank you.
My name is Jason Jaguar. I live at W202 N10462. Prepared something to say, but there's nothing new that we're going to say. I haven't come up here and said that it's not a good place to hang out. We don't have good food, that they're not having a good time. It's very obvious that people are there really enjoying themselves. And that's great. My problem has been the level of noise from the band and no way to regulate it. When I moved there, it wasn't like that. I didn't live by a hospital knowing there's going to be fire trucks and ambulances and all the rest of that. It wasn't like that when I got there. The fact that he's excelled at that as a business over there, that's a credit to him. He's got that figured out. But the fact that his parking lot is not enough, the entire BP gas station is full. Now they're parking on both sides of Willow Creek, trespassing through my yard to get to his establishment. I don't think that's fair. I think we have a right to peaceful dwelling, and just because he's allowed to have the outside music doesn't mean we have to hear it all in my home 6 months out of the year. It's just not fair. The fact that it took something like this, his license not being renewed, that these amount of people to come here and he's being forced to be here to do something about it, could have happened years ago, but he didn't take any of those opportunities to do that. And he may be a great guy, and I know they're having a good time over there, but they're going there for that particular time. I'm going to my home to relax and have my right to peaceful dwelling, and it's being constantly interrupted with no relief in sight. There's been many opportunities over the last 3 years that Mark could have took to try to find some kind of reconciliation, and it never happened and still hasn't to this day. Very recently on this Thursday, Trustee Miller came out and saw what was going on, and it was completely out of hand. And then he witnessed us going inside the BP gas station and came over there with some child across the highway and just stood there and glared at us. He could have took that opportunity to say something to me, but he didn't. He's had many years to do so and has not taken any opportunity. I don't want his money messed up. I don't want him not to have the bands. I've said that a lot of times. And I still think it's fair that I got to hear it in my home. As loud as they want to play it, it's just not fair to us. And I'm not the only resident that's got a problem with it, right? I've been vocal about it, but there's other residents that will not come forward. They don't want to be involved in it. They have a problem with it, but they won't take the opportunity. I just don't want to hear the bands at my house. I don't want to be surrounded by all them cars and all the traffic and all the noise, and now they're coming through my yard. That's just not okay. Should be taken care of years ago. And the fact that it's taken this much for this to happen is bad business. He may be a great guy, but there's more to being a businessman than just making money. And this seems to be his primary concern. Could have been a better neighbor and talked to us at any time and never took the opportunity. So I'm hoping that the board, when they're reviewing about this license part, they take all this into consideration. Like, there's just no way that it can continue and still be allowed to happen and that it's fair to us. It's just not fair to us. So I appreciate your time and thanks for this meeting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Sir?
My name is Mark Brooks. I'm the owner of Das Barrel Room, and I'm just going to address the comments that were just made. I went across the street last Thursday to approach them because Trustee Miller and Jason went into the BP, and I just wanted to be there to witness what was going on. And when I walked in, I seen him threatening 3 employees back there behind the counter, telling them that if they didn't have the owner stop our cars from parking there, that he was going to tear out part of their parking lot. Right in front of Trustee Miller, right in front of me and my grandson. And he was in a mood. I was not in the time to talk to you about anything. The first meeting right in this room, this very room, he was sitting on the back side of that room in the back corner. I left this podium with my business card. I went up to him, I handed it to him. I said, let's talk. Give me a call. Let's figure this out. Never heard nothing. All I heard was through meetings and coming here. So that's how we had to deal with it. He never wanted to talk about. I gave him my card. Other than that, I'll be glad to stick around. Obviously, I got to stick around. We'll talk about the rest of items later, but I just want to address that right away. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Got a running start that time.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while. It's been about what, 2 years since I've been here. Nice to see all your faces. This is new 3-minute clock. That's strange. I noticed it wasn't running when Jason was talking though. So it's nice to see you're up to your old tricks though. You still got that going for you. Obviously, I'm here in support of the Das Barrel as a former bar owner and trustee in the village for over a decade. I really don't like what I see that's going on here. You're waiting till the last possible day. You're holding something over a small business owner's head saying, hey, you might not get this outside premise extension permit, all because Jan and maybe a few others are disturbed about the noise code ordinance. That's what's stemming all this. Sure, there's other code violations and he's working with you on that, as does all the businesses through the community. And Jan, you know I like you, you know I supported you. I actually met Jason at your victory party, had a good talk with him. I like Jason, the guy who was up here as a neighbor. I feel for him. Part of the problem is the noise code ordinance. The animosity that's going on here, the anger between neighbors, 5 of you created this. Back in 2017, I brought forward that our noise code ordinance was not being enforced. It was Schuster's versus Chaz Hastings. You got to remember this. I brought in how we had all this equipment listed in code. We didn't have any of it. We didn't have training for the officers. There was equipment there that no one in the village, including the police department, didn't even know what it was. But we were supposed to follow it. So a strange circumstance happened. You guys agreed with me and you said we have to change the law. Unfortunately, you gutted it. You took out all decibel level readings, and what with the attorney's position, along with the police chief at the time who said that decibel meters were inaccurate and unreliable, and you said, we're going with just whatever the police officer thinks when he shows up. Well, this is so subjective and vague that it ended up frustrating the bar owners themselves. They don't know what the standard is. There's no standard. Imagine driving through a community that's not posted speed limit. Your navigation doesn't tell you what the limit is, and a cop pulls you over and lectures you on speeding and gives you a ticket. Like, what happened? Well, we decided to save money. We're not posting speed limits. We don't have radar guns. That saved a lot of money. We don't have to mess around with calibration and training or anything like that. But I have 2 eyes and I'm a reasonable person, and I saw you were speeding. So here's your ticket. I mean, I would be really afraid driving away because now he's not even telling you what the limit is, but yet the bar owner has to obey. And he has to go through these lectures. We've been doing this for years. Main Street, I've dealt with it with neighbors for years. You're not solving the issue. And I know it's constitutional. The reasonable person clause was approved by the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and it's constitutional. But other states like Michigan threw it out. Too subjective. 2 reasonable people can disagree. You can't have that law. As Germantown was moving away from decibel meters and actual science and facts, other whole states like Arizona, the legislation in Arizona said we're eliminating all nuisance code violations for noise unless there's a decibel meter. There has to be something scientific. And we're going in the opposite direction. As other communities are buying equipment today, they have AI sensors. They can tell if it's music or if it's traffic or if it's a guy yelling over here, it can pick up everything. So as the whole nation, and even some communities in Wisconsin are moving towards technology, we're moving away from technology. We're going, oh yeah, we got rid of anything. We'll find the police officer with the biggest ears, tell him to go over there and say, hey, you know, look like you care, and then go bother the tavern owner for a little while. And then some trustees get mad about it, and they're using the permit process to get back at a bar owner that they're frustrated about for noise. That's totally not what we want from our government. I thought this board learned that with Rockfield Shortport. Remember that? Remember the amount of residents he brought in that were frustrated with this constant nitpicking of the small business owner? He doesn't cross his T, he doesn't dot his I. Great, let's get him on that because we can't get him on something else. This is the wrong approach, and it's really sad to see. And I am not biased towards tavern owners. As you all know, I was on Schuster's side against Chas Hastings. I was on the resident side against the winery, Jan, which you were for the winery. It all comes down to conditional use permits that were promised to residents, and then you guys broke their promises. This is a different case. The neighbors, there's a bar in the neighborhood. They moved in. The bar's been there for a long time. There were no promises made to the neighbors. But I do agree with the neighbors on one point. They should have a standard that they can rely on. And the bar owner needs to have a standard. So I agree with this previous speaker. You need to go back, redo the noise code ordinance. I hate to be the guy that says I told you so, but I said there was going to be problems like this. And there's going to continue to be problems. And you can't rely on Jan's ears or Jolene's ears. There's 2 people here. Jan, you go there. He just said, I know that you go there and you don't think it's loud. Well, that's what we're going to base it on, like a person's ears and nothing scientific. I've been to your house. You live in a very nice house in a quiet neighborhood. You live alone with a cat. It's a very quiet house. So you're used to quiet, right? So you have a beautiful place, but you don't have a tolerance for noise. Jolene, I know you. I've been to your house. You have a house with 5 kids. It's noisy. It's loud. You could be nailed for noise code violation every day of the week. It is loud. When Jolene wants peace and quiet, she goes to the Das Barrel. So she has no problem with the Das Barrel. Plus, she's worked in taverns in Germantown that were loud her whole life. You can't rely on her or Jolene or Jan. And you know I supported you both, and I like you both, and you're both my friends. You have to go back to the law. You've created this. This is going to happen more times than not. You have to get with the day, get with technology, just do a little research online and come up with some sound laws that both businesses and residents can agree that, hey, at least there's a standard. At least we don't have to be threatening each other and fighting anymore. Thank you. Thank you for coming forward.
Mr. Wing, we did let you go beyond the 3 minutes, so just to be fair. All right, is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Yes, sir.
My name's Casey Lockowitz. I live in Menominee Falls, but I'm also the bar manager for Das Barrel Room. And I just wanted to second Mark's comment. 2 weeks ago, before my shift on a Friday morning, I went to the BP gas station to purchase something. And the manager or owner lady, I don't know, she came out freaking out. She asking me if my owner was there, or so she could talk to Mark, and basically said that the neighbor gentleman came over with a plot map, also threatening to tear up the parking lot if they continued that. So I just wanted to second that witness.
Okay, thank you for coming forward. Anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? One online? Okay, anyone else? And we can go to the next item on the agenda, which is consent agenda. Board?
Motion. Go for it, Bum.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through C as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Bum, trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Phil Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Pieper. Aye. Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky.
Aye.
Vice President Wilcher.
Aye. Motion passes. That then takes us to the next item, which is unfinished business. One item listed, item A, the 2024 through 2025 application for renewal of annual outside premise extension license for Das Barrel Room. To give us more information background on this unfinished business item, we'll turn the meeting over to our village attorney.
Sure. So all of you will recall just 2 weeks ago, we had another hearing very similar to this, that we can go through the process and have some testimony and then make some decisions if that would be the choice. I did hand out at the beginning of the meeting some potential renewal terms. These are terms that I worked with Mr. Brooks, the applicant, his attorney, on potential restrictions that might be in place. Some of them reflect kind of what he is doing. Some of them are maybe putting some backing behind some of the things that he said he would do in terms of what's going on, and can just go through those just very quickly. So the first condition relates to the fact that we've all heard that he's indicated that he wants to reorient the stage so that the sound shoots away from the neighbors in the residential areas. The condition basically requires him to physically complete that project. And I think there was floating around on the dais some plans that he had provided to the clerk's office earlier as well, that kind of shows that 180 degree flip basically in terms of where that is. And so we would require him to actually complete that physical work within 30 days from the license granting. But we would also say that in the meantime, between now and whenever he actually completes that reorientation of the stage, that the bands nonetheless have to perform as if the stage was in that new location. So they'd have to perform with everything projecting the other way. So that would be, again, putting some teeth into things that he's kind of said he was thinking about or wanting to do in the future. The second is that we would limit outdoor music to only Thursdays through Sundays. That is fairly consistent with what he has been doing, but obviously it does put some limitations that he wouldn't be able to just do it on a Wednesday night if he decided he wanted to do it on a Wednesday night. The third condition would be that we're going to set some hours. Under the code, as I think all of you are aware, we allow music to be played outdoors until 10 o'clock. Basically, he would be allowed to do that on Friday and Saturday nights. He would be limited to 9:30 on Thursday night, and then on Sundays, we would limit that to actually 5 o'clock. And he was okay with that particular provision. And then lastly, we just indicate that he did want permission as part of his outdoor premises without having to come back and doing another application to hold one event per license year, where he would basically hold a fundraiser where he might play music from a different location on the property, depending on the number of people and the types of plans and that type of thing. That particular provision, though, would require him to, again, orient the music in a way that would not be facing the particular property, residential properties to the kind of other direction that we're talking about here. The benefit to these proposals, if the body would just want to go ahead and approve the renewal with these conditions, is that he's agreed to these terms. It makes a potential revocation or modification of those terms significantly easier because these are things that he's now said, yes, I can live with and agree to. And it makes the enforcement process just that much easier as part of that. So that is a proposal. You could certainly look to make a motion to approve that at this point. Otherwise, we can certainly have some testimony and have the swearing in and go through that process as well.
Trustee Pieper.
Has he seen this exact document?
He has not seen this exact document, but we did go through it earlier on a phone call with him and his attorney.
Could somebody share it with him? Because I feel that is unfair if he did not see this exact document and he doesn't know what he supposedly was agreeing to. So while you're reading that over, I'm going to make a motion to approve the renewal of the annual outside premise extension for Das Barrel Room with these conditions listed here, as long as he okays it. And I do want to strike one part of it, of number one. I want to say that he can play for the next 30 days. I think that is unreasonable to a business to not allow them to have bands until he reorients the
The
stage.
condition allows him to have bands. The bands just need to play from the same location that the stage will be. That we had actually contemplated and discussed the idea of him not being able to perform until that physical reorientation took place. We thought that this was an appropriate kind of compromise, that we would allow him to play music, but they just had to play from the location that they're ultimately going to be. So again, the
Does that work
sound
for
is
you?
the other direction.
That does work for you. Okay, so then I'll remove the last part of my motion, but I make a motion to approve the outdoor premise extension for Das Barrel Room with these 4 conditions.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Bone.
So what is the volume requirement in our community? I can play as loud as a jet until 10 o'clock and that's acceptable? Yep.
No, that's not true at all. It's not, Trustee Hudson. It absolutely is not true. The code basically, for anybody who is not a licensed outdoor extension premises type circumstance, if they play music that can be heard over a residential property line, that by our code is a violation. An outdoor extension is something that we allow more flexibility to, recognizing that they're going to have additional opportunities to have live music, for example, as opposed to just playing a stereo really loud kind of an approach. The approach there that we have routinely used, and I know the police department uses, ultimately is whether or not that behavior is a nuisance, and you fall back to that reasonable person standard. And so what the police department does when we get a noise complaint is they go out and try to make a determination if the music is too loud or not. Within the packet, you see the complaint. The police department's been out there 13 times over the last year, at least as of when I got the reports a little while ago. I'm not sure, I should have actually asked Chief, and I forgot to, if there's been any since early June when I got that report and today, but that reflects basically the last year. And as you'll see from those, there are circumstances where the police department goes out and says, no, the volume's loud. It's not any louder than the traffic on the street, for example, in one of the cases. There's a couple cases where they've come out and said, no, the volume is too loud, and told them to turn it down. And then they complied and turned it down. That's typically what you would expect your bars and licensed premises to do, is to, if there is a complaint, to address the complaint and to lower the volume, or to, disperse some of the problematic patrons if it's a, fighting type circumstance, or whatever the case may be, that you ultimately want them to be compliant. And so, that's the standard is, what does the individual responding officers feel in terms of is it subjective? Absolutely. But it's better, at least in my opinion, than putting a fixed decibel limit on, because decibels become a weird thing for a number of reasons. And we talked about a lot of these, as those of you who were on the board when we made the change will recall. Number one, we had a change in the federal law of the rules of evidence in terms of if we wanted to establish a violation based on a decibel meter, that officer needed to be able to testify as to the science behind decibels and the meter and how all of that worked. It's just not realistic. Unlike with a radar gun, where the legislature has said, we will find that the science behind these is well enough proven that you don't need to testify in order to use that radar gun. Legislator helped us out in that case. We didn't used to have to worry about it. Change in the federal rules as it relates to evidence meant that we then had to worry about whether or not a police officer was going to be able to testify to how this machine worked that he was going to do. The other problem with decibels is that depending on how you define it, you could have A-weighted or D-weighted, or the various different types, and each of those is going to be, to somebody, an A weight, for example, not going to be a problem. But the other weight is going to be a problem. Could be the same decibel, whereas another person may be the opposite, because it's just what your ears are sensitive to, whether it's the higher or the lower frequencies, basically. The other problem with decibels, and there's a study out of Arizona, actually, that says that it's very weather dependent, that in some circumstances, you have, sounds that when certain weather phenomenon take place, crisp, cool, fall evenings, for example. Anybody that lives, reasonably close to the high school will tell you that you don't hear anything all summer, and then all of a sudden in the middle of summer or in the middle of fall, you're hearing every word coming out of the loudspeakers, even though you don't hear it, up until that crisp, cool fall air. And so it's going to be dependent a little bit on the weather as well. And so for those reasons, decibels, really become kind of an unworkable type circumstance. Now, we've used them, from time to time in various locations. Those of you probably familiar, my partner Jesse is dealing with the Rock complex down in Franklin. They've actually agreed to utilize decibels, and that was something that the particular operators of the Rock agreed to do because they ultimately didn't feel that they were a problem, that their volume was well below whatever standard might be able to be put in place. Certainly, again, could be something to do, but at this point, we don't have the equipment again. We'd have to go out, buy the equipment and train some officers to utilize that. We've certainly talked, I think it was here at least, we've talked in some cases about having automatic measuring devices set up at various locations that are on the property. And the property owner could look to do that. Those are things that we've looked to do as well. But, at the end of the day, it becomes the balance between, do you want to have a fixed number that you may or may not be able to legally enforce, or at least enforce in a way that we're going to get a court to go along with it because of the rules of evidence, or you want a standard that maybe is a little bit subjective, but at the end of the day, largely appears to be working. Obviously Mr. Guerre disagrees. He's the complainant in I think all but one of the 13 instances that the police were out last year. But it is a circumstance again where the police department goes out, and when they see a problem, they've asked them to turn it down, and Mr. Brooks has been responsive.
Okay. The other issue that I keep hearing about is the parking. What are the limitations for parking off-site?
So as all of you, I think, will recall, our code does allow for an entity, a business entity, and not just a bar, but any business entity can, through a CUP process, obtain a conditional use permit to allow the parking on a parcel that isn't the main parcel of what's there. Mr. Brooks has done that in this case with respect to the property that is to the south, west, east, that is there. We have, I think, indicated to him, I know at least I made the comment at the meeting where the conditional use permit was dealt with a couple meetings ago, that if he's going to continue to utilize parking at the BP as part of his parking that's there, that probably requires an amendment or a new conditional use for that purpose. But if he's utilizing that without that conditional use permit, then that's probably a violation under our code, because we don't typically allow for parking to be off-site on another property short of that conditional use permit.
Should that be another term in what you've got written up here so far?
I think that at the end of the day, that's probably a separate issue, or at best maybe an issue that might have been better placed on the full alcohol license, because there may be issues, the same issues during the middle of the winter when he's not outside as well. And so, I think that it's there, but certainly we are aware of the fact that he appears to be utilizing the BP for parking purposes, and has been told, and I'll tell you again, as you're here, if you're going to continue to do that, you've got to get a CUP in order to allow that, just like you do with your, the next door property.
Amendment to the current CUP.
Or you could amend the current CUP as part of that. But, again, that to me is different. That's more of a zoning and land use issue as opposed to a licensing issue. And we do try to keep those separate, as best we can, just because it's just best practice when it comes to how me and my colleagues throughout the state view these things, that you try not to blend them, because it just makes it harder to deal with some things. So for example, if he doesn't do and follow through on that condition, I've now got to deal with a zoning issue on a licensing thing, and I've got to haul him in on a hearing, and we're going to revoke your license because you're doing it, and all of these things, solely because of a zoning issue. Whereas I can just as easily run to the circuit court without going through this process and get a circuit court judge to order him to stop violating our code and impose a daily forfeiture. That process generally is more effective when it comes to purely land use related type circumstances.
Thank you.
Further discussion, trustee Pieper.
I would like to beg to differ with you, Attorney Sajak, about laws regarding actual decibels. Wisconsin state statutes are littered with actual decibel levels.
You won't get any argument from me that there are plenty of instances, both in the statutes, in other communities across the state, and plenty of places around the country that utilize decibel limits. My issue is that when it comes to enforcement, when I have to sit in front of a judge
Decibel reader. And we would need trained police officers that know how to use it.
and to be able to explain the science behind the very machine that he's using and decibels themselves.
Sure.
Because if they're not able to do that, the judge is going to throw out the case.
Understandably. But we still do have state laws regarding decibels. And the only difference is we don't have a village ordinance regarding decibels that states specific decibel levels. And I do agree with trustee Wing, or he's not trustee anymore. Sorry, Dan.
Ex-trustee Wing.
Ex-trustee. That sounds terrible.
Former.
Mr. Wing.
Former.
I completely agree with him. We have no consistency in how we handle these businesses. Absolutely none. We let Chaz go on for how long? And you guys know it. When the Schusters sat in here complaining and complaining and complaining, we never put Chaz through this much pain. And it was Chaz.
Actually, we
put him.
We went through this exact process.
Going to take away his outside premise extension,
Actually, we did talk about not renewing this.
but it never even got this far. And for us to treat a business like this, that is honorable, reputable. Secondly, you can't control where people park. You can't control where the public is going to park. You can't even prove that every single person in all those cars was at Das Barrel Room. If they are, there's no parking signs posted on Appleton Avenue. There's no parking signs posted at the BP. He wouldn't need a new CUP, in my opinion. That is just the pictures of these cars, ridiculous. People can park wherever they want. There's no parking signs there. I don't even see why that is an issue or why those pictures were even passed out. And the fact that he wanted to solve this man-to-man, why didn't you talk to him when he walked across the street with his
An open
grandson?
discussion, trustee.
I understand that. I'm saying that is a question that I have. I'm not asking him to come up and answer it. Thank you, though. But why didn't you talk to him then? He had his grandson with him. So obviously he's not going to sit there and start cussing and, throwing punches or anything like that. He has his grandson with him. You can't
Now
speak
it's
unless
open
it's,
discussion.
it's not, you cannot
Stop it.
speak.
No back and forth, please. Stick to the topic
I'm
and
done.
motion.
That's all I have to say. I think it's ridiculous that we brought this
motion
restaurant and
to
bar this far. You already made my motion and seconded. I already made my motion and seconded. It was seconded.
It's to approve the conditions that were presented for the renewal.
Correct?
Thank you. Further discussion. Trustee Hudson.
So I've been out to this area several or many, depending on whatever word you want to use. And I have stood actually far behind the Jaguars' house on the road that goes behind it, and video recorded bands and music that I can hear more than probably 0.2 of a mile away. Reasonable people can disagree. And I don't want to rehash the history that has brought us here today. What I would like to do is be able to figure out some way that we can move forward. Excuse me, I'm a little sick. Hopefully on mutual agreement, but something that works best for everyone. It is nice to see the words on paper. It's nice to see that you've looked at that. The challenge that I have with what the attorney has passed out is if I just do the basic math, we're going to allow music on 208 days of the year outside at this location. Obviously, I understand we're in the state of Wisconsin. There may be snow in February, so I know it's not going to be 208 days a year. But I would like to come up with some type of number that we could have that the interested parties could agree upon. Because if it is 6 months out of the year and it is 4 days out of the week, that's 104 times a year. That's basically an outdoor music festival. That's that's what Summerfest is doing. Summerfest has outside music 3 times a year. So I would like to come up with some type of compromise or mutually understood agreement before we can pass this.
So are you asking for it to be postponed? Or are you asking for it to be tabled? Or are you just putting the matter out there for discussion?
I'd really like to hear the owner's thoughts about what he thinks is a reasonable amount of outdoor concerts to have in a month. I think that's a very fair question if he would give me or us his input on that topic.
So Mark, we'll just, as we kind of talked about, since we're kind of venturing that way, we'll just swear you in just to make it all above the board, so to speak. So just raise your hand for me. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Now, as we talked about, as in our phone call this afternoon, just a little bit of basic information. Just start by your name, please.
Mark Brooks.
Okay. And you are the owner of the Das Barrel Room?
That is correct.
And you, as I understand it, are also typically the responsible individual on site many days, as well as like the manager?
Absolutely.
And you have received the documents that brought us here today, the summons and complaints, and have had an opportunity to review those?
Yes, I met the officer at my door.
And understand that basically, and I think, you know, obviously you've heard some of it already today as well, that ultimately the issue is the noise complaints that the village is getting in terms of what's going on.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then I guess just to address Trustee Pieper's concerns, we had a conversation this afternoon that basically was the culmination of a couple conversations that I had with your attorney, wherein we talked about those conditions that you might be willing to live with.
Yes.
And you've had a chance to now review those conditions and any problems with the way that I've reflected what I think our understanding was previously?
I have read it over and I agree with them, yes.
So now with that, I believe Trustee Hudson had a question for you.
Okay.
Before we go into that, for point of order, are we now conducting the hearing in the midst of discussion of a motion?
I mean, it's a little bit, it's a little bit unclear, but certainly if, for example, Trustee Hudson was going to make an amendment to the motion that would be different than what we have talked about and he's otherwise agreeable to, that probably requires a hearing. And so I think it makes sense to blur that line a little bit and to formally have him, under oath and to testify. And maybe we come to a number or a term that everybody can live with, and that's great. But if he doesn't and somebody decides to make a motion that's inconsistent with what we've talked about previously, then we really do need to have that hearing process having played out. So it just makes some sense to swear him in.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks?
I think the numbers I'm about to present will clarify a lot of this, and I think we can all come to agree on it. Using your numbers, Trustee Hudson, 204 days, and I know you're talking about snow, everything. We are now at July 1st. I won't even go back to last fall where we didn't have music for December, November, October. Since January 1st to right now, we've had about 9 or 11 outside performances. So 6 months have gone by and we've had 9, 10
performances. So I'm not saying that's going to be the norm, but Mother Nature dictates our performances. Very seldom, if ever, we have all 3 days of music. There's always some day that's followed up by Mother Nature. So to say moving forward, to put a number on it, if we have 20 weeks in a summer, you might only get 1 or 2 shows a week, sometimes none. So like I said, 9 shows, 10 shows in 6 months, that's hardly a music festival for 204.
Well, so I did do a little research and I did look at your website, and currently you've got 42 days scheduled from the start of the summer through the fall. So that's 42, and I assume that you've got some open slots on the calendar that you'll try to fill,
Absolutely.
because
Yep,
as
correct.
has been stated, you got a great business out there.
Thank you, but I will say that we had more than 42 shows booked up until this point this year. And we still only had 9 or 10 outside. So we could have 102 booked, but we might only get 15 outside.
Yeah, and I,
Because we play inside too.
yes, and I want to say that I am unaware of a single complaint when the bands are inside, and I think we all need to acknowledge that fact also. So you're unwilling to commit to any number? You want that schedule as wide open as possible?
Well, it's hard to predict because a number, if it's, I might have none one weekend and 2 or 3 the next weekend. So it's hard to come up with a number. I mean,
And what if
to
he's
keep- what if
under,
I-
if you wanted to extend it out? I mean, if you have a hard number, that means he could go into November based on, I haven't hit my number yet.
or stop in August because I hit my number and that's,
Right.
Correct. I know, and again, I'm looking for a middle path between 0 and 208, right? I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, and it's a difficult job.
yeah, well, we're at 9 right now in 6 months. So I mean, even if it doubled to be 18 in the next 6 months.
That's a low number. Outside.
Or 5. Trustee Hudson, you still have the floor.
I'm gonna say thank you, but I wanna think a little bit. And I appreciate your thoughts.
I appreciate it, but I know my outdoor premise extension is up today, so I'd like to get done. All right. Thank you very much.
Off of Trustee Hudson's discussion, I think a number is harder to define, where a range of time is better defined, meaning months of, and this is just throwing a months out there. It doesn't mean this is what it needs to be. Something along May 1st to September 30th. Now you got a range of what's out there rather than you're going to have 104. You're allowed 104 for the year. Well, that 104 can happen at any time. You could have a December 25th that's 80 degrees outside.
This document has that number in it. So, I mean, again, it's 4 times a week times 52. The number is 208. That's what the document says.
Well, it shows that the days that it's allowed and the time within those days that it's allowed.
Correct. 4 days a week times 52 is 208. It's pretty simple math.
That is one, though, that we did add a Sunday in there for occasional use. We have had
Correct.
1 Sunday performance in the last year.
I understand that, and what the village attorney has pointed out very well is there is I don't want to say misunderstanding, but there is a misalignment, maybe is a better way of saying it. And I'm trying to get to something that can be pointed to that is a number that is understood, that is accepted, that is easy to define instead of the insanity that we have going on now. That's what I'm trying to do.
I don't think it's insanity, and I think that a lot of this is gonna change once the stage is orientated in a 180-degree turn. You're gonna find that's a lot different than what it is now. That's gonna solve a lot of the problem right there, let alone Mother Nature, let alone no Sundays.
Trustee Hudson?
You're going by the old, we have to change it, and we will change it very soon. And not only that, we talked about the orientation, but you've seen on the handouts I presented that there's gonna be, if approved, we would put up a wall along the side which faces the Appleton Avenue and the neighborhood, which would continue to block more sound. So
Is there room in the front of the building there? Is there room to do that?
no, right on the deck, right along the stage.
On the
from-
deck, not on Appleton Avenue, on the deck.
It's on my handout, on the deck. There would be a wall right next to the stage, going to the thing. All our sound is going towards the woods or to the park and ride or to the freeway now.
Has this been tested at all?
I'm being told we're testing it now, so that's something we can look at. You can certainly call me back in here if it doesn't pass the,
See, that's the problem. We can't. So then we have another year where we could be right where we are today.
well, all we have to go by now is you can tell that we're facing 180 degrees difference. It's gonna go the total opposite direction.
Are we still on the hearing? Still part of the hearing here?
I'm just common sense says that would help, not saying to what degree you're saying, but I think it'll be a great help.
The screen shows some of that.
Yeah, I've looked at the drawings.
All right, so since we're in the hearing portion of the motion, which is new territory, are there other questions for Mr. Brooks? Trustee Bone?
Is there a sound level that you and the neighbors could accept together? You keep the volume at this level
How do you
instead
read it?
of one higher or 10 higher?
That's gonna be subjective too, but yes, I'm all for that. I don't think it's gonna be a problem, like I said, once we turn the stage. I go out there now with it facing the neighborhood, and I go on the end of our property, not even in the road, and it's very comfortable, very light.
For you.
90% of the time, right, for me. Now you take that and turn it 180 degrees with a wall up there.
And can I convene a meeting of those residents that aren't here but are disturbed by it? To say, hey, let's meet at the corner on some night during the week, play some music. Is this too loud? Is this too?
Yes, I would be all for that.
This is what we
That's
did.
very subjective.
Let's have a party.
We have a,
Can I extend my outdoor premise permit to that corner so we can at least have a,
we have a starting point
Coverage.
though as to what volume is acceptable and what's not.
Further questions of Mr. Brooks?
Is the porta potty gonna stay gone?
it's not gone, it's there now.
Where is it? Is it in back now?
No,
Is it-
it's the
is it
same
back-
spot it's
back
ever
in the
been.
front?
Yeah, it's always been there. That's a convenience for our outside guests to use. Unless I'm being told I can't have a porta potty on my property.
There's no ordinance against it.
It's a handicap porta potty. So it's easy for them to wheel in.
Other questions for Mr. Brooks? Trustee Jan Miller?
Mr. Brooks, so apparently these conditions on renewal were put together with Brian's, our village attorney's help or conversation with your attorney, correct?
Correct.
And the music is usually going toward Landon Road, you're saying?
No, it usually goes towards Appleton Avenue.
All right, and then
Right where where you were standing at Jason's house the other night, that's direct line for the music right
yeah,
now.
that's where the music is
It'll
coming.
be totally opposite.
Is the stage currently on a flatbed?
No,
Is the stage currently on the deck?
yes,
And will this stage that you're proposing continue to be on the deck?
correct. The opposite corner of the deck.
Okay.
For the drawing.
And then you have to move the stage within 30 days. All of this has to be completed. You realize that?
Correct.
Well, you've had a code violation for over a year regarding the parking lot. And nothing has happened on the parking lot.
Parking lot is scheduled to be paved July 15th. And it's taken a long time. They had to do soil tests last fall. The engineers and the surveyors took a while to get in through there through the winter. We went back and forth with 3 meetings here with multiple plans, thousands of dollars to get to the point where we could get to where we are at. And then we had to do our bids for our asphalt. We finalized all that, spending, lots of money, and we've come up with July 15th is what I was just told that they're planning. Again, if we get 10 days of rain, might change, but that's what I'm told right now.
Okay. And I was told by our community development director that there were no penalties for any of these former violations that you have paid.
Correct, because I was working through them with them
I see.
on a consistent basis, right?
I see. Okay. At point number 2, you have outdoor music shall be limited to Thursday through Sunday. I thought the music was only Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
That's what we currently have. And again, Mother Nature and things, Sunday is only an afternoon. It'd be like a single person or a duo playing a guitar out on the deck. It'd be very small and light, and it'd stop at 5 o'clock at the
Yeah,
latest.
well, I look at it as you're asking for extended hours. And so what we're trying to do is to keep things the same, turn the direction if we're even going to do this. So I personally wouldn't be in favor of extending any other days because that could be a regular day for you. And I don't think that we're at that point right now. So
That's fine.
it's about staying within what you have now, turning the direction around, and this is my opinion.
Right.
I just think that let's just see if it really works. Okay.
Yep.
Point number 3. Outdoor music shall not be played after 9:30 on Thursday, but you can go till 10 on Friday and Saturday. Attorney, is the ordinance play till 10 p.m.? Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Then again, I'm not in favor of adding Sunday. I look at it as an add-on, okay? And number 4 on your list, all music shall be played from the stage adjacent to the main licensed premises, except that music may be played from another location on site per license year when done in conjunction with a bona fide fundraiser event. Such music shall be limited to the date and hour restrictions above, except additional special temporary approval as granted by the village board. Music played at such an event shall generally be orientated to the south and or east. So when you have a special event, and please jump in, attorney, when you have a special event, every organization that I'm aware of, we have some on our agenda today, and we had some at the public safety. When you hold an event, you have to apply for permission on an annualized basis for that one day only. I don't care who you are. I don't care what bar you are, what event it is. It's a special occasion. And there's just a licensing or approval process that everybody goes through. It's not directed at you.
Right.
It's just what our ordinance is.
But if
So-
it's just part of our regular band night and we're taking donations, that's not really, I mean, that could be.
If it falls within Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you call it a fundraiser and you keep it on your bandstand, then it's not, it's a regular thing. So number four should be stricken. That's what I would recommend. If it's a special event, a fundraiser.
So the idea was that when it comes to alcohol licensing, how you describe where things take place has meaning, right? And so like, for example, if you describe your premises to be just the four corners of the building and you sold outside of that building, then it's a problem. And so the idea was, because he's indicated that he does typically have a fundraiser that he does for community events once a year, that we would, as part of this application, just like we do with all of the other things, you mentioned the couple that we have today where they've come in and said, we'd like to have approval for these particular items, that we're basically, as part of this approval, saying, you have the right to utilize a little bit more of that space for that purpose, provided that you are, again, addressing the noise concerns that we have by rotating the music the appropriate direction and those types of things. That's all we were looking to do with that. Certainly if this body were to decide that we want to make him do a special request to do that, you could do that too.
Since we have issues on sound, whether we have a decibel system or not, there have been noise complaints. I think we should keep it as what every other venue must go through for, the village of Germantown.
I think you're confusing a couple things, and one of the confusions, and just to go to what's on the agenda tonight for new business item D, is application for one-time outside premise extension license. That's why they're coming forward to the village board, because they're only extending that premise for the one time for the one event. What this condition number 4 is saying, we understand you have a fundraiser, and as long as you still have it within the conditions of 1, 2, and 3 on the perimeter of your outdoor extension, we're okay. We're okay with it. But if there's anything else, he would need a special date and hour. But for this one time on this premise within this definition, we're allowing it. Don't confuse it with the one time only outside extension that Big Sky is asking for. It's a little bit different because they don't have it normally at all. They don't have any in that area that they're asking for to set up that tent. They can't have their extension doesn't go out that far.
But they're asking for a different orientation.
We're asking for a different orientation to help.
No,
To-
so
You've got on 4. I understood.
yep. So
You're saying in point number 1, face it to the east.
Right. If I
And in number 4, you're saying south and or east.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
the idea behind number 1 is that the stage for a special
Right.
fundraiser type event wouldn't necessarily be on the deck. It might be somewhere else on.
Why would we do that? That would have to be on a case-by-case basis, right? Everybody else has to do it.
We have other instances where property owners get their extension, and whether it's for a fundraiser or otherwise,
That's
they have
fine.
that.
Well,
that
when it
extension,
happens,
but-
it happens.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to go to the south. It says south and or east.
South and southeast is where we're facing the music. That's where we're trying to get it to get away from the neighborhood.
It says south and or east.
Well, because it's vague, right?
That's very vague.
Well, nobody knows. It's on a diagonal.
Okay, trustee Jan Miller, as the clerk and the one that issues alcohol beverages license permits and applications, I'm going to walk through it so that it's very clear. An alcohol beverage license, they apply for it. The state of Wisconsin statute says that for any portion outside of those 4 walls, that an establishment can apply for. In different communities, it's called different things. Here in the village of Germantown, it's called an extended premise. So when we walk out onto the deck, or we walk out onto the grassy area of the golf course, or we walk out into the patio, it is described on the application, the area where we can consume alcohol and our beverage, fermented malt beverages.
Right.
In this particular case, as Mark Brooks has explained, and what you see on the image before you on these 3 screens, is that they already had an outside premise expansion. They already applied for it. This is an occurring year that they had previously, so it's the same application that they're asking for from last year, that was approved last year, that they're asking to renew for 24 and 25. The application for the extended premise is not being changed. They're only changing the stage. For anyone else, as Village President Walter explained, anyone else that's coming in that don't typically have an extended premise outside of their bar and our restaurant, they apply for what is called a temporary one-time event, as in this case for Big Sky. So he would have to literally apply for every single event that he wanted to be able to have that outside event. And it does have to go before the public safety in addition to the village board. So in order for those events to happen, then there is a process. It's not approved by me in-house. So unlike operator licenses, we approve those in our department, but this goes before our public safety and our village board. So this is not a different application that was previously approved in previous years. It's not being changed, and it's not a special event. Just wanted to confirm that.
Trustee Jan Miller, you still have the floor for questions to Mr. Brooks.
Well, I'd like to make a statement. I was there on Thursday night, Mark, and I listened to the music, and I looked around the parking lot. It was packed, and you were using your attendees were using the BP parking lot, and it was pretty packed in the back road. I believe it's Willow. Is that right?
Willow Creek.
Yes.
Willow Creek, thank you. Was busy as well. There was someone from the gas station that went across the street and must have talked to you or one of your managers. Is that right?
I heard about it afterwards. I think it was Casey. Was that you? Yeah. He
Okay.
came over and just said, I just want to see well, Casey, I don't want to put words in your mouth if you want.
Walked over there to buy something.
No. When he came
No.
over to us and peeked his head in on Thursday night. Well, it wasn't you then. Someone came up to me and said he came over, he just wanted to see what it was all about, what the fun was all about.
Okay.
That's what I was told. I didn't see him.
So anyway, the conversation with Jason Greer was that there's a question between his property line and the BP.
It has nothing to do with us.
Right, but the only,
That's what it was.
right, but the only question was, the only reason why his question is because we had our cars parked on his property, right? Correct?
No, we were told by those people that the question they posed to you at Barrel Room.
Trustee
was
Miller, with
they
all
were
respect,
too many
the parking lot has nothing to do with the application before us, and I would like to get the meeting back on track.
That's fine.
Can I,
And I'll clear it up with you later.
yep. Can I just have a
Thank you.
rebuttal on that too? Just so you know, for
No,
that night.
you have to drop it. You have to drop it because I was told to drop it. We were just told to drop it. I'm sorry. I said I'd talk to you afterwards. Is that okay?
Discussion for another time.
Right.
Does anyone else have other questions for Mr. Brooks in regards to the hearing? Want to go with trustee Warren, since he hasn't had a chance yet?
Thank you for being here, Mr. Brooks. We appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate all the residents showing up here and taking your time to be here and provide input for us. Just a question. As an engineer, and when somebody tells me I can't use numbers, it's very frustrating for me. And it's kind of like refereeing a game without any rules. So that's where I really have a lot of angst about what we're talking about here. I don't know how effective rotating the stage is going to be. I mean, it's intuitive, like, yeah, it's probably going to be less noise going the other direction. I get that. But in my experience working with noise barriers on freeways, you can put up a wall here and it's going to help the people over here, but the reflective noise will provide more noise for the people back here. So you're effective in providing the noise over here, but you can get some reflectivity off of trees and other things too. So for us to think that this is going to really solve the problem, like they won't hear any noise now, that's just foolish. So that puts us back in the situation as to, well, what's acceptable? We don't want to enforce standards on you that's going to impact your business. Respect what the neighbors have to listen to, and to find a happy medium. I'm not sure there is a happy medium to this. So we talked about flipping the stage. That was pretty intuitive. Are there any other backup plans if this doesn't work for whatever reason? Have you considered, I understand you're putting a wall in, which could help funnel the noise further to the east. I get that. But any other options after we go through this and say, yeah, let's do this? And
Well, we always have the option of, I do that now, monitor the noise, and we can turn the sound levels down if we have to. Or meet with people, whatever you're saying.
one thing an owner did a couple of years ago, and I'm not saying you should do this, but they voluntarily put noise sensors around the perimeter or near the property owners that were upset. And he actually had an app that would alert him when it got above certain levels. Again, we're getting into the technical part of it, but I think it was a good message to the property owners that you as the owner are trying to do everything you can to monitor that, and you're sensitive to it, and that it's real time. And the impression would be that if you get above certain levels, however we decide what those levels are, that you're proactively trying to reduce that before we call the police. They're tapped out with resources. We don't want that either. So,
I get that, but when you're talking about property owners, and like you mentioned, The Rock before, multiple property owners, multiple complaints. I'm not discounting Jason's claims, but it's one person. We can certainly handle that without going through all of this technology. With an easily stand out on the corner and say, is this too loud? Is it not too loud? I mean, we're talking one location.
Right. And sometimes it's not just the level of the noise, it's the song. All right, thank you.
All Chuck Benedon songs are awesome, so.
Other questions for Mr. Brooks? Trustee Jan Miller.
I just have a question. My understanding is that to attorney, we have I believe it's a cup with Appleworks as well as the Beer Stubby as far as the noise levels or something like that. There's an agreement with those two outside venues that have music all the time with their neighbors.
No, we don't.
So with Apple Works, that was a condition of their license that
Yes.
had some of those terms in it. We actually don't license Apple Works anymore because of the change in the state regulations, and so they don't have any restrictions other than the aforementioned 10 o'clock time period that
The
that
10
is in
o'clock,
place.
yeah.
And they're at least arguably maybe a little bit worse because they are not a licensed premises, as that term is used in our code. They probably, standing at that property line becomes more critical for them because we don't allow them that additional flexibility because they're not a licensed premise anymore. At least it's not licensed by us.
But we
That's one of them, quite honestly, that we don't know how that's ultimately going to play out, in terms of the state now licensing those things. And if we have complaints about it, for example, whether or not they're going to do anything, we have no idea at this point. The other one, I'm not sure that we have any specific restrictions, in terms of.
License Beer Stubby to the new owners. Was there anything attached? Does the clerk know?
Well, we're off topic. This is a public hearing for him, not the beer tube.
It's an example.
I would suggest that fairness in terms of how you're dealing with all of your licensed premises is certainly a valid point of discussion for this
Can you
evening.
ask the clerk to look up exactly what was put in about the beer stuba?
Well, I mean, the problem with the beer stew is that I think the license was just issued basically on the renewal basis of the previous one.
Okay, but point of order, should
But-
we close the hearing with him and then she can go on and ask what other questions?
It's relevant.
It's all part of the hearing at the end of the day.
I don't think there's anything special with the beer stew.
Yeah, I don't.
There used to be a decibel level at their edge of their property, and that went away with the change in the noise ordinance. So it would be along the same lines of what you have here for time that they can have outside music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is I think it was maybe a time restriction, but nothing more than that, as I recall.
I think the, if I recall correctly, the neighbors came and made sure that it was okay, whatever they had before, as far as an agreement, they were okay with that.
It was
And-
time periods.
Right.
So, having the time period is critical.
Other
Keeping it the
questions
same.
for Mr. Brooks? And close hearing. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for putting up with the questions from.
Can I make one comment or not?
Make a last statement? Sure, absolutely.
Okay, my last statement, just getting back to the BP, a lot of that parking overflow was because we didn't have our parking down below. I counted cars over there, it was about 17, 15, 16, 17 cars. We're gonna get 14 down below once we get our paved parking lot. That would alleviate a lot of that. But also I have a question. If our clientele want to go over there and fill their pickup truck up with $100 worth of gas and they let them park in a spot on their property and walk, you can't do that. We can't have an agreement between two businesses. They're going to lose a lot of business because of us if we can't park over there. We're doing them a favor by filling our trucks up, buying product from their store. They love us over there. We want to support them. They want to support us.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the application for renewal of the annual outside premise extension for Das Barrel Room, including the conditions on renewal. Correct? With a second? I'm just making sure everybody understands. All right. Further discussion on that motion. Trustee Pieper.
Motion to call the question.
Motion to call. We need a second. Who's the second?
Terry.
Terry Kaminsky is the second. We vote on that first?
Yes.
All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
2 opposed? Call, 3 opposed? Motion carries. We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Ketz,
Aye.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller,
Nay.
Bill Hudson, Trustee Hudson,
Nay.
Trustee Peeper.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky.
Aye.
Village President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Before we break up, because I know most of you are here for this, and you're welcome to stay, because there's a lot more interesting stuff coming up. But I'd like to thank you all for coming and showing your support, and for those that came forward and spoke, appreciate that as well. I thank Mr. Brooks for coming to this hearing and participating in an open and calm manner, so I appreciate that very much. And with that, we'll take a short recess as the room empties out, and we'll start with new business item A within several minutes here. So just a short recess. Thank you all. Turn off your microphones, please. Call this meeting back to order. You're now starting with the new business item A, which is an application for a temporary Class B beer and Class B wine retailer's license for annual Germantown Historical Society's Oktoberfest on September 28th and 29th, 2024 at Dinesville Historic Park.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, and trustee Hudson second. Thank you.
No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Next new business, item B, producer full service retail sales application, Old Germantown for Germantown Historical Society 50th anniversary event, July 13th, 2024 at Dinesville Historical Park.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Next item is item C, producer, full-service retail sales application, Old Germantown for music at the Pavilion on July 11th, 18th, August 1st, and August 15th at Fireman's Park.
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve?
Who made the motion, please?
Phil Hudson.
Seconded by? Thank you.
No discussion? All those in discussion on new business item D?
C.
C, I'm sorry.
Um,
Music on the Pavilion?
yeah, I was just gonna say that, new business item A, B, C, and D went through, public safety right before this. All were approved unanimously. And I was hoping we could just approve them. That's all.
We are on C.
Oh, geez, I just went to the bathroom for a second. Holy.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Not opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda under new business is item D, application for a one-time outside premise extension license for Big Sky Country.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve?
Who made it, please?
Bill is first.
Thank
Bill
you.
is second.
Bill is first and who's second?
E.
Sorry.
Me.
Okay, thank you.
No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Takes us to next item, which is item E, potential tax increment district and alternatives for Sterling Pharma expansion. To give us more background information on this new business item, I'll turn the meeting over to our representative from Ehlers, which is Phil Cosson. Phil, you're going to go first, or is Christian? Okay. Okay, I saw that.
Wow, I didn't know that whole thing moved. Did you know this whole thing moved? We both-
Just know that if people rush the dais, it's not holding up.
Thanks, Christian.
Jerry?
Oh, I was so low. Oh, didn't you get one? Here, did you get one?
I got one of those.
Okay.
Just put it on ledger size paper. It would help me.
Yeah, we have going the opposite direction, so. Got it. Thank you.
Is that coming my way? No, I got that already. I think we got everything here.
Good.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Phil Costin with Ehlers. Nice to be back with you. I'll kick it off. Christian's got a few items that he wants to go through with you as well, but we were brought in about a month or two ago regarding Sterling Pharma and their possibility of their expansion in the village. We looked at it a couple of ways to start. Initially, we had talked about creating a brand new tax increment district for them, which would have been tax increment district number 10. As we talked through it, we came to the conclusion that it's probably, for a variety of reasons, we'll go through them, better to look at amending TID number 9, which is, as you know, directly south of Sterling Pharma. And so what we are looking at tonight is an analysis that shows the amendment of TID number 9. I said, why would we do this as an amendment versus a new creation? I think the primary reason is Sterling Pharma is going to be an industrial property, as is the rest of that tax increment district number 9. So it fits from a purpose and a type of tax increment district with what has been created already for TID number 9. Second, this analysis will show that we're able to, if again they move forward with the phases that we are going to show you, has the potential to close the district out earlier. So I know that's been a goal of this board for all the tax increment districts as we've gone through them. And our analysis shows right now that with Sterling Pharma, with their expansion, multi-phase expansion, would potentially close out TID 9 5 years earlier from 2042 to 2037. So we think there's merit to looking at amending the district versus creating a new district. Finally, and I think Christian can verify this as well, we are still early in the negotiations with Sterling Pharma. And we can, even though we have 2 less years of increment collection potential, we can renegotiate or negotiate based upon amending TID 9 versus creating a new district, which I think benefits the village as well to be able to close the district out earlier. So in here, we have kind of the facts around tax increment district number 9 as kind of a reminder. So it was created in 22 as a 38-acre industrial TID. Maximum life is 20 years. It was amended later that year. We added Stonecast, which is doing an expansion. So the total acreage of this district is 61.92 acres. It was really created in conjunction with the village's public works facility and allowed us to extend water, sewer, and streets to both serve this new industrial area, but also to serve the new public works facility. So it was really in conjunction with the public works facility site being developed. And we would now, if we're going to look at using TID 9 as the source of revenue to benefit Sterling Pharma, we would need to propose, we'll propose a change to not only the project plan, but also to the boundaries of TID number 9. This is really a collaboration between the village, EDWC, and Sterling Pharma at this point. So it would include a very significant investment by Sterling Pharma, which includes jobs attached to it. And I think Christian has that information for you. And again, as I indicated, would allow TID number 9 to close out potentially 5 years earlier by including them. This is the boundary of the existing TID number 9. You can see it kind of wraps around the DPW site to pick up the Stonecast building as well. In talking with Administrator Krecklow, good news here is that all the segments that were to be developed at this point have, so we are on track in tax increment district number 9 with the actual increment and the development associated with it. So we're off to a really good start in TID number 9. So Sterling Pharma is, again, as I've indicated, looking at a pretty significant expansion in Germantown. And I'll tell you, the key here, I think, is a couple of things. One is we don't want to overpromise valuation because there's always a bit of an unknown when it comes to manufacturing. So you'll see footnotes in here as well. So their first initial expansion, they're looking at around, I think it was $18 million initial, 21 million, I'm sorry. 21 million initial development. We're using 70% of their construction value that they have provided EDWC as the valuation that would be created. So about a little over $14 million. They are also looking at a campus expansion of $5 million. Again, we valued that at $2.5 million, being an industrial property. We want to be conservative. They also have looked at a lab expansion in the current facility at $10 million. Again, we valued that at $5 million. Base 6 expansion and a Base 6 carryover are large expansions, each valued at $20 million that have been identified. So while they have come forward with about $75 to $80 million of actual construction and new development occurring, what we have identified is about $42-43 million of incremental value. That's what generates revenue in tax increment district number 9. So those are some of the numbers that are tied around their expansion plans. Their initial plan, again, is about $21 million that will lead to an additional job growth in this area as well. The beautiful part of this is that all discussions with them have been that there would be no outlay, upfront outlay by the village. This would exclusively be MRO, and I've explained that before, a municipal revenue obligation, where there's actual contractual obligation that runs between Germantown and Sterling Pharma, and it would allow them to capture some of the increased taxes and come back to them as an incentive for their expansion in Germantown. And so as it's structured now, and this is still subject to change, what we're calling for is 33% of the increment would go back to Sterling Pharma, and 67% would be retained by the village. Again, no upfront money coming from the village into this development at all, but these MRO agreements directly were with Sterling Pharma. What you do see here is it says banknote. That's the orange column that you see in the banknote is really a loan, direct loan from EDWC. We don't have that in our template, EDWC loan, not surprising. So you see that there is the possibility of a loan coming from EDWC that would be $1 million. That would be an upfront incentive that would go back to them and would be paid back out of the increment that they would generate. So, you know, the village has been involved in a lot of tax increment districts that have had a significant portion that had to be paid for, you know, when it came to public infrastructure. That is not the case here. This would be a loan from EDWC and then MRO payments that would come back to Sterling Pharma only if they actually expanded into Germantown. So the next page is kind of our normal. I know it's a lot of small numbers and it's hard to read, but this is looking at their expansion and the MROs at 33%. And you can see that this would close out about 10 years into tax increment district number 9 as it's currently structured. And so that leads us to the ability to close out the district earlier, because the original TID 9 required a closure of about 2042 by the time it got paid off. We think that would move up to about 2037 if Sterling Pharma moved forward. And the structure was as I laid out as to what they would receive. And again, a lot of that still has to be finalized with them as well. So it's a large investment into Germantown, and again, I think some more structure diligence that's needed to be wrapped up that'll ultimately end up in a development agreement in front of you. If you want to move forward with this, we have put together a relatively quick timeline at their request, the company's request. It's not something that we necessarily came up with for a timeline, but they want to see this in place as soon as possible. And again, as they see it, the first framework is to actually put the TID amendment in place. At the same time, we're working on the development agreement. So 7-1, again, action to proceed with the amendment. That's tonight. We're just looking for a yes, we'd like to proceed with this amendment to assist Sterling Pharma with their expansion. If that goes forward tonight and there's an action to do that, the 8/12 initial JRB meeting, Joint Review Board meeting, and Plan Commission public hearing would occur. That would then allow us village board action on your regular meeting night of 8/19. And then sometime later that month, we'll have a final joint review board that would allow them their ability to really kick things off late August, early September, which is a little later than they wanted, but they are kind of fits their timeline for them to really get moving on their initial phase. So that's the timeline, the process, kind of the initial analysis of just Sterling Pharma and then how it impacts tax increment district number 9.
Questions? Trustee Cutts?
So I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. Instead of doing general obligation bonds, the loan would come from EDWC for the
The initial
million.
loan, as it's structured right now, the initial loan, you're correct, would come from EDWC and would not come from the village. The increment from TID 9, the new taxes that are coming from Sterling Pharma, would pay back that loan.
They're 33%.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point, Christian. Yeah, so, right, they're not getting the loan, $1 million, and then 33% addition to that. This is part of the 33% that they would be receiving.
And then the 500,000 plus for interest goes back to EDWC
That's correct.
on top
That's
of
their
the
loan.
33.
Correct.
So that 33% of 9.6 million, the revenue on here is what's guessed at?
It's 33% of the full build out as they have planned out. So the increment generated, the annual increment that's coming from their different phases,
Mhm.
they get 33% of that. If you look at page, and I'll go back to the page, this page right here, where it says project cost amendment. On the bottom of each one of those is a projected, and it's only projected right now, MRO payment that would be available to them if they do each of the phases. So the last column, the last row you see on the page, you see the $1 million that comes from EDWC. And then each column, you'll see where it says revenue column 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Those are tied to each one of their expansions and the MRO that they could receive if they achieve, the expansions that they planned.
Other questions? Trustee Rick Miller?
Yeah, Phil, so if, as we've seen with JW Speaker, not all phases actually happen. So if one of these phases, well, let's say just phase 1 occurs, does that extend TID 9 at all? Does it help TID 9?
We ran an analysis at the request of Administrator Krecklow and Christian and I talked, and we ran one analysis that was kind of I don't want to call it necessarily worst case, but we eliminated the campus expansion and we eliminated the 2 bays, the last 2 that
The
are on
last
here.
2, yeah.
Yeah, and we just said, what if they do just the initial and then the lab expansion, which are the most likely on campus that they're going to do. And it did not extend the life of the district.
Okay.
It closed out, instead of 5 years early, it was 4 years early.
Okay, so still a positive impact on it.
Again, we're not paying out those MRO payments on
Right.
the subsequent phases as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Carson? Trustee Jan Miller?
The TID 9 area. And the map that I'm sure is not yours because you don't do maps, it just shows TID 9.
Yeah,
Right.
we didn't.
So I know that Sterling Pharma is across the street from Donjas Bay Road.
Right.
So what area are we talking about for the amendment to the TID?
We haven't necessarily broke down the what exactly would be picked up to get to Sterling Pharma. But I think there'd be one parcel that would be required to be added besides their property to get to them. So it's just adding one parcel and then their property. We haven't discussed whether or not we would expand it beyond that. There is some open land back there that we could add to the TIF as well, but that hasn't been discussed. We're just looking at picking up, we have to stay contiguous, as you know, they have, all the parcels have to touch.
Touch.
And so
I know
we
that.
have to pick up one parcel, and then I think we're at Sterling Pharma across the street.
So there's a purchase of a parcel?
No, there's no purchase required. We can include a parcel just within the boundaries of the district.
But who would own the parcel?
The
TID?
current owner.
The current owner?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how much land?
How much land? I don't know offhand what that parcel acreage is. We'd come back to you with a revised map to show you what it would look like.
Yeah, effectively, the easiest way, trustee Miller, is if you look on the map that's on the screen, you see that kind of gap that's on the left side. As you're looking at it, that parcel, not including the square that's on the top left-hand corner, but the kind of odd shaped parcel that's there, that would be the most likely one that you would add, which would then connect you then up to the Sterling property across the street. That parcel currently is owned by GFL. It's a waste transfer station, I think, Mr. Etzloff.
Yeah, you're not required to purchase it or anything. It's just, you'd be using that property as a connector to get to Sterling Pharma.
And Sterling Pharma wants to move forward with this, and they can only, I'm just repeating it so I get the understanding. And they're only guaranteeing, like phase 1. Is that right?
I think I'll leave that question for Christian, who's had more conversations with the company. I have not talked with the company. Christian has.
And I'm not sure you answered Trustee Cutt's question. What is the advantage of having an EDWC loan versus bonds?
Well, the advantage to Germantown is you're not issuing the debt, so you have no risk. As a result, the risk is really EDWC getting paid back from the increment that's coming in. So
Is there any
significant benefit to the village by having EDWC provide that loan.
But we pay it back.
It gets paid back out of the increment that is coming from the tax increment district. And
Is there-
if there isn't enough revenue,
Yeah.
then it becomes the responsibility of Sterling Pharma to make up the difference. And that would have to be collected by EDWC.
But there's no interest on it.
There's EDWC loan is, I think, at 4.5%. Is that right, Christian? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Carson? If not, we can bring Mr. Cheshlock from EDWC forward. No other questions for Mr. Carson? All right, Christian? Wherever you're comfortable.
Hot seat. So you have in front of you this evening, this working?
Yes.
Okay. You have in front of you this evening a revised analysis from that we've discussed before. The primary revision is the inclusion of the amendment of TID 9 we had been speaking about, as Ehlers had previously represented a site-specific TID. But when you include it in TID 9, there is 2 years less increment for Sterling Pharma to be able to capture as part of their 33% incentive. So that does change the numbers a little bit. I'm confident that we'll be able to make the case that any disadvantage that would come from that, there are several advantages as part of partnering with the Village of Germantown and making that adjustment. But I did want to show what the economics of that would be. The bottom line on page 3 of the document that I put in front of you is that there remains, even after incentives, a $10.5 million net benefit less incentives across the taxing districts with a present value there of not quite 6 million. So still a very positive cash flowing development. As it relates to the earlier question by Trustee Miller, there are, as you see on page 1, an initial Bay 5 expansion phase. That is the project that is absolutely at hand. What that does is that unlocks their subsequent expansions, which have a multi-year layout, as you can see in the development plan. They are very confident that if they are able to unlock Bay 5, that because of the nature of the types of active pharmaceutical ingredients that are a part of that production, that given the demand that's in not just the marketplace, but within their global entity, that those expansions would proceed forward either on schedule or even ahead of schedule. They were very conservative in those estimates, again, not wanting to overpromise, but rather underpromise and overdeliver was their objective and our directive, frankly, to them. One of the most exciting things about this project is, yes, CDWC geeks out on virtually any development project with merit, but we really specialize and focus, instead of attracting one of the, your next shiny sparkling star from outside the community, which has value. What we're proud of here in Germantown and in Washington County is that we really also support those businesses that have already made an investment to be here, existing businesses that are looking for expansion. Why should we always be incentivizing the next newest shiny sparkly star when we've got rock stars in our midst? And that's really what's kind of exciting about the Sterling Pharma story here, is that they started way back when as an idea. Cambridge Major Labs, in one of your older business parks, expanded to their current campus, were acquired by Alchemy, and that resulted in additional campus expansion that we've been able to be a part of, and they have met their commitments and promised, and the promises that they have made as a part of those developments. So a very strong track record. And then here they are again, a leading plant within their global enterprise, Sterling Pharma. And some of the competitive advantages that have fueled this very consistent and growth that, again, they've met their commitments historically, has been the fact that here in Germantown, we have a uniquely skilled workforce that is operating at that facility, and they've had some really notable success in attracting the kinds of workers that they need at that facility. It comes at a price, and that's one of the disadvantages of this facility relative to the competing facilities, namely in Ireland, that's within the Sterling Pharma family, and that's the wages here are the highest in their global corporation. But again, the competitive advantage is that a lot of the products and the active ingredients that they're developing here are the ones that they already understand and have skills in. And so all things being equal, they would love to be able to locate the expansion here. That said, it's the local management and leadership that's competing within the global entity for that business. And so one of the difficulties they've had is overcoming that wage differential relative to the other global entities. The other difficulty they've had is that while they've secured the contracts for the business within the global enterprise, they still have not made a location decision, in part because as they've been getting and procuring bids for the build-out work, they're coming in higher than expected. So the upfront EDWC incentive is critical to helping to fill that gap, both from the standpoint of the wage differential as well as the upfront expenses that are going to be required in order to build this out. Again, further accentuating the conservative nature of both Ehlers and EDWC's analysis, but still represents a need in order to make the Germantown economics work competitively relative to the other options being considered by the global corporation and the global entity. So that's the update in a nutshell. We did touch base with them after this concept of amending TID 9, and they are amenable to it, and they were able to give us an update as to their current status, and it's only reinforced the importance of that upfront incentive. And again, to be clear, The repayment of that upfront incentive with EDWC taking the risk is coming out of that 30% tax increment. And so you continue to maintain that benchmark that you've had for quite some time relative to TIF incentives, kind of hovering at that 33% level.
Questions?
Happy to address any other questions.
Yeah, questions from Mr.
President.
Peschlak? Trustee Hudson?
So, excuse me, I'm a little ill. I have some questions about the payroll numbers, which I can't get to work as they're presented on the sheet. So 103 jobs at an average salary of $52,000 does not equal 9.8 million. It equals 5.356 million. Plus you can throw about 30% in for benefits. So there had to be something wonky going on there. So I continued to read, and it appears that to get to that $10 million in salaries, they're including 75.4 spin-off jobs from the creation of 103 jobs. Help me understand how for every one job that's created, we create 0.75 of another job. And then I ran those numbers, but when you include the spin-off salaries of $30,500, it still doesn't equal the $9.8 million. So I'm a big jobs guy, and I'm trying to figure out how they're getting to that $10 million in payroll.
So the 52,000, several questions in there. I'll try to unpack them one by one. If I miss one, just by all means, bring it back up and I'll hit it. But the average annual salary is a weighted average in the model, meaning early on, the 23 jobs as part of the Bay 5 are primarily operators. They do not operate at the same salary level that the chemists and the engineers do. And those constitute a very large number of the jobs in the Bay 5 expansion. Their average right now is actually at 100,000 between the chemists and the engineers rolled in. The subsequent site expansions, particularly the lab expansion and the potential to expand their campus by an additional parcel, that would be primarily engineers and scientists, which again average closer to that 100,000. While not in the same numbers as the operators, that's part of the contribution towards the 19.8 million in annual payroll.
So, but it says that at full ops in 5 years, the average is going to be 52,000. So I assume, maybe incorrectly, that the average salary of all the jobs created in 5 years is going to equal $52,000.
Yes, and that's primarily the Bay 5 expansion. So when the model says at full ops, that's that initial project.
But can I just take that 52,000 times the number of jobs that are created and come up with what the payroll is supposed to be?
That annual payroll is not the same number. That is taking a look at the entirety of the development, the 103 jobs.
So 103 times 52,000 is 5.3 million.
Right, and the 52,000 is a weighted average.
It's a weighted average.
Okay, it says some of them have it says 140 retained jobs at 100,000.
That's retained jobs. That's not new jobs, though.
I could get you this is an executive summary. I could get you the full detailed report, which is like 50 pages or so, that breaks out some of those aspects.
Bridget, does it also have the calculation of how we create spin-off jobs in there too?
There's an entire manual that gets into the detail of what constitutes the spin-off jobs. The short answer is, it depends on the industry that they're in. So different industries will spin off other opportunities or indirect jobs. And indirect jobs are basically those jobs that are not directly hired by the company or due to direct company employment. But they would be jobs that, for example, when a company employee has disposable income in their pocket and they're on their
Fast
way
food
home,
restaurants,
drives by
retail,
gas
yeah, I get
station,
it.
and it also includes construction jobs are based in that spinoff as well. So it's a combination of the industry and the CapEx that's involved gets into the spinoff equation. But I can, in addition to sending the detailed report, I can certainly get you the manual that explains how the assumptions and the modeling work.
The report would be great to start with. I don't know so much about the manual, but thank you.
I want to make sure you get the information that you need.
Further questions for Mr. Cheslock? Trustee Jan Miller.
Now, you mentioned that we're competing, we're adding your $1 million is very important, right? For to adjust for this wage. And you mentioned that they're competing with Ireland, but they have other locations. Why would it just be Ireland?
So actually, that's, when I say they're competing with Ireland, internally, that's the largest competitive location because of existing capacity that is already in Ireland, the favorable tax regime that they have in Ireland, and then also the wage rates in Ireland. So that is the top competitor internally. There are also external competitors. They could contract some of this work out and not handle it on the internal side, and I didn't even address that in this. But internally, our intelligence suggests that the biggest competitor right now is internal, and it would be the Irish facilities.
Do they have the equipment already put up? I mean, does it
They
actually?
do not have all the equipment. I can't answer exactly which equipment they have or don't have. What I do know is they have the existing capacity. That would include the reactor equipment, whether that's everything that's needed for that project, I couldn't tell you.
So the first phase is only, according to this, is an additional 23 jobs. And that would be all we would be guaranteed.
So
because that's phase one with the Bay 5 expansion.
The initial project that they're contemplating right now and that we are incentivizing is that Bay 5 expansion.
Right.
What that does is it unlocks the other projects, which again are part of their capital investment plan, provided they can land the Bay 5 expansion here. So the dominoes don't fall without that first initial project that we're focused in on.
And did Sterling Pharma approach you for this project?
We actually keep in touch with a lot of the larger local manufacturers, and so we have regular communications. And one of our communications a couple of years ago, they talked about the potential to obtain a significant business contract, actually a couple different contracts, but in particular a single contract based on an active ingredient that they had. And we've been kept on top of them with that. And as that project was progressing, they then laid out their economics, and then, we decided, hey, this is worth engaging so that we can compete here in Germantown.
Would this Bay 5 expansion be within their current brick and mortar?
This Bay 5 would be within the current brick and mortar. They have a shell space in there that has nothing in it at this time, but brick walls and a ceiling.
Right. So they built out for expansion.
They built this facility, Bay 5, as a planned future expansion.
What, obviously they're in negotiations with you and Germantown here for this extension or amendment to the TID. What is their plan B? Are they still going to continue to go for this?
So one thing I've learned is I don't call a bluff. We evaluate the merits of a project. And what I can tell you is that the competing set at this time with the best knowledge that we have is Ireland. And that's what we're up against.
Other questions for Mr. Cheslock? Trustee Pieper.
So I see Sterling Pharma in the UK. In 2023, it looks like they had an operating profit of 31.2 million pounds. And that it's grown rapidly. It tripled its revenues and quadrupled its earnings. Why? And what else did it say? Continued major investments in the campus exceeding 150 million. Why do they need our help then?
Because this project is not the only, or this is not the only location where they could locate it. So it's a question of, do we want the Germantown location to compete and win the opportunity for the Bay 5?
So they're, well, it sounds to me like they're going around asking all the different locations, who's going to give us money? Who's going to incentivize us for us to build here? But they have their own money that look up the reports for Sterling Pharma.
So
for their other
when we
locations
do
here.
incentives and when we would engage in any expansion project, we want the company to be strong. We obviously want them to be able to deliver on what they commit to. We want to make sure that the incentives are recovered as negotiated. So part of what we would be doing would be underwriting some of their financials to ensure that they have that health. What would be awesome is if we existed in a vacuum and we weren't in a competitive landscape. And in which case we could just say, hey, make your optimal choice and we'll let the cards fall where they fall. We've found, and the data shows, that when we engage a company and we partner with them, that facility continues to grow and achieve the objectives that the community has. We continue to see them not just locate future expansions here, but grow the job opportunities here, which is also worth investment. So the way that we look at this is that we're competing for an opportunity. It's an investment. So we run the numbers and we do our own economics, which is that page 3. And we say, is what we're investing as part of participating, is there a payoff to that? And there's absolutely a payoff in this particular project's case, including a payback period that is quite a bit less than the actual potential incentive period on the TID. So the economics in terms of our participation are very favorable and with a very strong return, the kind of return that any one of us would like to see in our individual portfolios. So it's a matter of looking at it from, are we competing? Is it economical and is it a good investment for us to compete? And are we achieving the community's economic development objectives through the project? And the answer in this particular case is a no-brainer yes to all of those.
Does the board wonder or worry at all about the future of Sterling Pharma to continue to be successful at all?
Do I
Because
worry
it looks
about
like they've
The
been
future need
going
of
down.
Pharmaceuticals within our world? No, I do not.
Well, then why from their balance sheet and cash flow from 2002 to 2023 or 2022 to 2023, like if you look at it, it looks like it's going down, not up. I mean, if you look at their private finances or their public finances, I'm just,
If I can piggyback on that for trustee
Right ahead.
Keeper. I went online today and was looking at their financial statements, and for year ending 12/31/23, Sterling generated net cash provided by operating activities of $96.9 million. And their capital expenditures totaled 20.4. And that was down like 3 or 6% from the previous year. That's still a lot of money. So they're an international company. I don't think they need our help, but I do have a question for you. There was an article that Sterling Pharma Solutions invests $3 million in Germantown facility, and that was just May 30th for the integrated antibody drug conjugate. Is that anything to do with this bay, or is that something different? Because if they've got $3 million for that, I think they have more money for this expansion.
That project is not a part of this expansion.
No, I know that. I'm just saying if they just invested $3 million for that, I think they have other money to invest towards this expansion and not come to Germantown to do it.
You could also argue because they invested 3 million in that expansion, the resources are tight within their local capability to actually grow relative to the other choices that are in the company. So I mean, our job as EDWC will be to underwrite all of that and to ensure that the integrity of the funds and the incentive that's put forward are honored. And that's what we would do if we were to be able to make it that far in the discussions. The first step is the tax increment district.
The village doesn't have the risk, EDWC does. What I said is the village would not have that risk, EDWC would have that risk. Or
But we have to pay them back.
we have to what?
We're paying EDWC back.
No, the increment is.
Well,
It's not coming out of anything of the villages. It's coming from the increment that's generated from the valuation of that property, and 33% of it is paying EDWC back. The village is not outlaying any cash.
And it's a pay-as-you-go, so that means provided they create the increment, that's when the share comes in. And EDWC would be underwriting the risk of that cash flow being sufficient, and if it weren't, the ability of the company to meet that gap. The design of this is such to meet your objectives where you don't want that risk. That's been our long-term understanding. And so we've designed it so that we assume that risk, yet we still meet the objective of having capital upfront when the company needs it most for their expansion. So it's been a very, I'll say, functional way to structure the deals because it gets you what you're looking for, it gets the company what they're looking for, and our team of financial experts that do the underwriting ensure that we are able to be covered in the deal structure. And that's been a very successful model that's been applied in multiple communities, including Germantown, more than a couple times.
And then that closes TIF 9 4 to 5 years earlier. That then comes down to the tax rolls 4 to 5 years earlier than it would currently today.
It also contributed to the earlier closure and the successful closure of the TID district that their business park once occupied.
Correct. And at that, for those that weren't on the board at that time, in 2007, 2008, when that park was in red, and we were borrowing money from TIF 3 to make its increment payments, we came in with Economic Development of Washington County, Barry Chavin of MLS, and ourselves, and we gave a 33% increment back to Bradley Wash Fountain, Ellsworth's glue and adhesives, Wisconsin Stampings, TCI, EnviroSafe, and Weimer Bearing. And that TID closed 4 years early with a $1.5 million surplus because of those changes. We took it from the red in 2007, 2008 to the black so that it closed earlier than what was projected.
but we aren't in the red right now.
You are, well, but you're shorting. You missed the point,
One of
but
your objectives is to, sorry. Mr.
that's
President.
fine. Go ahead.
Sid, we're not in the red.
Fine. You're right, we're not. Trustee Rick Miller.
It doesn't matter to me if Sterling Pharma needs our money or not. There's no risk to us. And this makes TID 9 stronger and closes earlier. Those are the two decisions I need right there. That's it. So I'm going to make a motion directing staff to proceed with the process of amending TID 9.
Second.
Motion made by Rick Miller, seconded by Terry Kaminsky. Proceed with the motion as requested on TID 9. Discussion on that motion to approve. Trustee Cutts.
It's just a comment. There is no risk to us, but it does increase tax levies if we're making the TID bigger, which affects residents and business payers.
Earlier, so it goes to the tax roll faster.
Right, but that tax levy
Tax
increases.
levy. Because we're not borrowing anything.
Yeah, there's no increase.
It will not increase the levy.
But you're increasing the value if you're putting a new building up. New
increasing the
construction.
valuation that allows us to look at the possibility of using a higher levy, or we can look at our budget without the TIF and the increment that the TIF has added in regards to additional building costs, and run our budget that way like we've done the last 2 or 3 years. That was minus the TIFs. So there's two ways we could look at that. If the money is needed for whatever additional expenditures that the board decides they want to go with as part of the 2025 budget, then we could look at using the full resources of what increment is allowed to us to the levy based on our evaluation of increased in construction, or not, which we've kind of done the last 2, maybe 3 years now. 2 years for sure. So that we haven't used the full amount of levy that has been available to us by removing the TIDs as part of that equation. Trustee Trustee Cutt still has the floor.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay. Trustee Jan Miller?
Just a question. Sterling Pharma, were they part of a TID before?
Yes.
Did they get the 33% before? In 4 or whatever TID you were talking about?
So, because they were one of the first that were in there. They were one of the first buildings that were part of that TID.
So they did not receive.
EDWC did provide, at that time, Alchemy with some incentives to engage in their Bay, I believe it was Bay 4 expansion, which they did complete. And it's been operating for years since.
But it wasn't in conjunction with the Village of Germantown?
I would have to look back at the specifics of that deal structure. That was a long time ago. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Sure, thanks.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
No.
trustee Baum. Trustee Jan Miller,
No.
trustee Hudson,
Yeah, yes.
trustee Pieper,
No.
trustee Rick Miller,
Yes.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Polling location for District 1 and clerk.
Thank you. It was recently brought to our attention that one of our polling locations, which is our district number 1.
Oops, go ahead.
Our district number 1, which is Bethlehem Church, they have been, and lucky for them, and we're happy for them, they've been looking to have a new project in addition to their building, and that project is able to happen sooner than later. So we were just advised about a week and a half ago that they were not going to be able to host us for the upcoming elections in 2025 that remain. Those elections are going to be held on August the 13th and November the 5th. As a result of this renovation for them. So with that being said, per statute, we are required to get the board approval to change our polling location. And we have been in speaking with the library director, Tricia, as an option, and along with our senior community center as an option. And after further review, we believe that the parking location layout at the senior center would be more accommodating for the upcoming remaining elections, being that they're a little bigger turnout elections. So with your blessing, we would like to move forward with the polling location at the senior center for the remaining of 2025. Again, those are for the elections for August 13th and November 5th.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to change the polling location for District 4 to the senior center in Germantown, Wisconsin.
District 1.
District 1.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Warren? Oh, you were the second. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item G, strategy concerning acquisition of properties in the village's village center district in the general area of Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road. The village may convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to close session with the following people here:
Village Attorney,
Village Attorney,
Director Etzloff,
Sloth, Ayers,
Phil Cosson,
and
Ba-
Jordan, and
Bailey.
Bailey. And you may go home, Donna.
Any further discussion? Roll
Did I
call,
get a second? Okay, just making sure.
roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Cutts,
Aye.
Trustee Bum, Trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Hudson,
Aye.
Trustee Pieper,
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller, Trustee Kaminsky, Village President Walter.
All right, before we go into closed session, the next village board meeting will be on July 15th here at the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom at 7 o'clock. Please remember our 4th of July festivities and all the other events that are happening in July. Participate in many as you like. Enjoy your July, and we'll see you on the 15th. So have a good night. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching.
Great job.
Microphones off, please. Okay.